Hello, this is Daniel from Queens.
Daniel from Queens.
Yeah, Queens.
Yeah, Queens. I'm a recent Queens resident. Last time I called, I was Daniel from Brooklyn. Now I'm Daniel from Queens. Change is possible.
Right.
Binder has gained +1 and then an ally on this program now, I see.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. So what I wanted to talk about today is I honestly wanted to do a little bit of commiseration. The Jamal Bowman defeat was a really huge bummer. And, you know, there was a caller yesterday, I don't know if you guys heard, who I think was a college student and read off this pretty impassioned statement about how basically, if I'm not mistaken, they don't want to vote for Biden because, you know, he's supporting genocide. He's supporting these crackdowns on protests on college campuses, not really doing anything for, you know, student loans. Those aren't necessarily all things that this caller brought up, but they're all reasons why I wouldn't blame someone in their position for not being motivated to go out and vote for Biden. Mm-hmm. I am going to be voting for Biden because the idea of a second Trump administration is horrifying to me. But I've got to admit that I'm feeling like very doom and gloom about the election and the state of things. I mean, the fact that the race is so close is really disconcerting. The fact that progressives are, you know, being bullied out of office with conservative money is really disconcerting. And also, I'm sure you guys have noticed, it's really hot out and it just gets hotter and hotter.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know that you know, if there's so much of a question there as much as just like a grasp for something to hope for, you know?
Yeah, I mean, look,
I think that's the feeling a lot of people are having.
Definitely.
Like, I had no sort of problem with I can't vote for Biden because of this. The only thing I objected to from that statement was that if Biden loses, things are going to improve, which I think is just not...
That's not true.
Not realistic.
I agree.
Things can always get worse.
I think people just aren't... it's not that person is too cynical, it's that they're not cynical enough. So, like, that was the only issue that I had with that. And if I agree, like, look, maybe Biden can win by putting together a coalition of Westchester segregation maintenance people and you know, completely depressing vote progressives. And you know what? I would prefer that to Trump winning, I guess. But as far as like people, we're already seeing like, ooh, look at Trump's polling with certain groups that usually Democrats take for granted, for instance, black voters. And it's like, yeah, look what just happened in New York's 16th district. And you want to blame black voters for Biden for not delivering the White House again to Biden over Trump? Well, we'll see.
Well, I think that to that point, the cynicism or the completely paper thin commitment that the Democratic Party has shown to any even veneer of anti-racism just kind of went away in that race. Like, George Latimer ran a racist campaign against Jamal Bowman, and you saw those voters in suburban areas of New York.
White flight voters.
White flight suburban people who basically said, I don't care. I don't really care. They made a voting decision based on that.
We want the white tax guy.
In 2020, I don't know if those conditions would have been the same. And Bowman's district was different. Like, Bowman's district changed from 2020 to 2024 in a way that favored a candidate like George Latimer, who I think it shouldn't be... it shouldn't go unsaid that he has a long history of retail politics in that area. So his name recognition, I think, was beneficial to him. And it might have been a really close race, even if AIPAC hadn't poured a bunch of money into the race. Yeah. Because of the changes in the district and because of just the fact that it's kind of an anachronistic district that includes the Bronx and then an extremely, extremely wealthy suburb, one of the wealthiest in this area. So, look, I do think that it's one of the most disheartening defeats I've seen. And I feel, I totally understand where that caller is coming from. I agree with you in terms of just plug your nose. I'm going to vote for Biden too in the fall. But that doesn't mean that I'm not extremely pessimistic about the future of the country and without any real left and the Democrats giving no oxygen to the left. Like, I have deep fears about the future of the country, regardless of what happens in this election.
That's the thing, is it's even like it's irrelevant, frankly. Like I don't know if you can make an affirmative case that Biden will be better for Palestinians than Trump. But like either if Biden wins or Trump wins, we have a global slide to fascism now that I mean, South America is doing a good job of resisting, but not a whole lot of other places.
Europe and the United States.
And people need to be organized. So we have the social movements, and obviously like labor strength would be helpful too. So we can actually get people into the streets, which we have done. Like we are developing this. The George Floyd protests, for instance, the stuff you've seen for pro-Palestine protests, the anti-Muslim ban. We are developing that capability in America. We just have a lot more space, like a much maybe a different sort of electorate than a lot of places, but like we do need to develop that stuff, and that stuff, all of those considerations are way more important to me than which lever people pull or don't pull on one day, on election day.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the call. Yeah, I was just going to add, I talked about this a little bit on my stream last night. Well, not a little bit; it was the whole episode. But I really do think that the situation was. I mean, obviously, AIPAC put tons of money into this race because they know it has an effect. But I think too much is being put into that as having the biggest effect. And I don't think so. I do think the redrawing of Bowman's district in New York 16 looks a lot different now than it did when he beat Elliot Engel. They basically took out everything but a small sliver cutout of the Bronx. And that was, if you look at how many votes he got from the Bronx in 2020, it was over 20,000 votes. And now he was able to get 84% of the Bronx in 2024, but that 84% of the Bronx only amounted to around 6,000 votes. That is and on top of that, they extended New York 16 north, more friendly to Latimer or a candidate like him. So this was an uphill battle the second that happened.
And also,
and I think,
sorry to interrupt.
And I was going to say, I think that has actually had a lot more to do with the race. AIPAC's influence on the television and on the media and on the internet and everywhere obviously played some role, but I also think they specifically got involved in this race in a way they haven't with others because they want to take the credit for it. Absolutely. And make it seem like that's why Bowman lost, because having a position that's critical of Israel is a losing position, and that's just not the case in the other races we've seen.
And we'll see with Cori Bush, too, right, where it's a lot less, I think, of fertile ground for this kind of money, but they are going to spend against her. So I think that
also a recent poll shows that she's only 1 point behind. It's a 1 point, which, like, even if she did happen to lose, that's not the same as what happened to Bowman. Cori Bush is going to be in a competitive race either way it goes. Bowman, it does seem like everything combined made it an uphill battle from the get-go.
And to your point, Binder, about the other races too, is like AIPAC is obviously a blunt instrument in a number of ways with how they use their funding in these races, but there is a reason why, for example, the people within AIPAC and UDP and all of these different kind of satellites of AIPAC and things like that, they also understand the districts that they're going to be putting expenditures into. There's a reason why we didn't hear the same. We have basically never spoken about Bhavini Patel, the candidate against Summer Lee in Pittsburgh, because they knew for a fact they were not going to beat Summer Lee in that district. They could have put that much money. Bhavini Patel was not going to beat Summer Lee. Bhavini Patel was basically a Republican, and they were not, like, the same thing goes for AOC. Marty Dolan was not going to beat AOC in her district. They are. As much as the windfall of that cash is certainly a key factor into what kind of swung reputationally against Bowman, they did have the tactic of making sure they were going after the squad member that was more vulnerable.
He was the lowest hanging fruit.
Yeah, Summer Lee and AOC were not going to be as susceptible to that as someone like Bowman.
Right.
Well, I mean, just
absolutely. No, go ahead.
Just to jump up. Irrespective of the quantifiable impact that AIPAC's money had, we did get to see who the establishment, the Democratic establishment step behind. Hillary Clinton came out and endorsed the primary challenger of an incumbent Democrat, something
100%.
that a few years ago was supposedly enough to get your entire consultancy working with blacklisted from working with other Democratic candidates. This is a concerted effort. And I think it's important to realize that the Democratic Party will break its own rules and its own established standards to come out in antagonism against leftist candidates who step out of line with the Democratic Party line. And they will do so at, like you said, in ways that emphasize, or rather pick them off one by one as they're the lowest hanging fruit. As they become weaker due to redistricting, as they become maybe less popular, they are going to use this ability. They're going to use whatever mechanism they can to remove them from power because they empower a leftist base. And, that's why I find some of the moves by some of the members of the squad or some progressive politicians towards moderating their language and being more reasonable and triangulating to be kind of a lost cause. Because if you're seen as empowering a leftist base that might make real tangible demands from the Democratic Party, you're just on their hit list. And it's impossible to get out of their crosshairs. Like every so often, it looks like AOC is friends with the Democratic Party establishment. She'll say something that upsets leftists. She'll say something that upsets, the establishment. But if they could go back in time and stop her from being elected, they would do it in a heartbeat.
Oh, they would. But I would say, let me just add to that. I'll push back slightly.
Okay.
She's shifted her strategy from like a behind the scenes perspective where she has a substantial fundraising apparatus. And she's lending that to the Democratic Party at this point to consolidate power. I think she'll try to run for Senate. So it's like for her, I think there's more like politics behind the scenes with her that is puts her in a different category than the rest of the members of the squad who are more vulnerable.
They'll knock her off. I think the knives will be out for look at what happened in Labour with the UK. Like that party has been the earth has been completely salted on that. Jeremy, and people always say don't go with the duopoly, go independent. Well, Jeremy Corbyn didn't have that decision. He had the decision made for him by Labour, and now he's fighting for his life as an independent in a district that I frankly thought he would have won just off of name recognition. So the party system, you can't just say no, it's not going to work, but. Yes, there is a conspiracy against anybody who wants to do anything liberatory in this country. And I think you can think that you're going to strategize past it, but it will come for them, I think. I think the AOC stuff, like with the folks with regard the definition about anti-Semitism, including criticism of Israel, I think that if she thinks that's preparing her for the future, it is, I think, digging her own grave.
Yeah.
I just think but I agree with you, Brandon. No. Yeah. No, I was just saying I agreed with what you were saying generally.
Yeah, this wasn't a direct criticism of any particular leftist politician. It's more of an acknowledgement that I think the Democratic Party is not dedicated to even giving the illusion that it wants to move to the left on some of these issues materially. They can adopt some of this language, but even we've seen that the stuff that they adopted from Bernie Sanders' election, they've all gone back on it. You don't hear about Medicare for all. You don't hear about single payer healthcare ever anywhere in the country. You don't hear about free public education or public universities. They've abandoned all those talking points, and now they've just pivoted entirely towards a 2016-esque Trump is the worst thing that could ever happen to this country. It's history repeating itself.
Yeah.
Well, that's why this election needs to be over ASAP. No matter what happens, we're going to be stuck in this until November 2024 comes and goes.
Yep. You're right.
I don't even know how to there's no battle plan or anything you could prepare for until that is over, because nobody cares about anything. Not nobody, but the vast majority of the general public don't care about anything but Trump Biden until November 2024.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.